Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam Om Karpanyadosho upahata swabhavah pruchhami tvam dharma sammuda chetah yat shreyasyan nishchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhimam tvam prapannam. Om. So, we are in the 18th shloka of Bhagavad Gita's second chapter. Here, Bhagavan is speaking about the Atma Gyan. There are other things also that he will be speaking about, but right now we are in the Atma Gyan. The shloka goes like this. अंतवन्त इमे देहा नित्यस्योक्ता शरीरिणः अनाशिनो प्रमेयस्य तस्माद् युध्यस्व भारत. So, antavanta ime deha, antavantah, which is that which is subject to being perished, that which is perishable. Ime, all these, deha, these bodies. Anything that is an object is subject to being destroyed. Technically, in this context, we include Stula Sukshma Karana Sharir. As we know, Stula Sharir is the physical body. The Sukshma Sharir is something like the breathing that you take, or something like the ability to see. Eyes is an object, it's part of the Stula Sharir, but the ability to see is called as Sukshmamsam. Right? Similarly, ability to smell or to walk. So all these abilities are considered to be part of the Sukshma Sharir. So 5 Karmendriyas, 5 Jnanendriyas, 5 Pranan makes it as 15, and there are 4 in our tradition that we take, which is Chittam, Buddhi, Manam and Ahankaram. All these are considered to be Sukshma Sharir. The Karana Sharir is very difficult to explain, right? There are various versions of how that Karana Sharir or what that Karana Sharir holds and so on. In simpler terms, for a creativity to happen, there has to be a cause. And that cause, which is in a potential form, is the Karana Sharir, the causal body. Nityasyoktaha, nityasya uktaha, nityasya. It has eternal existence, that it always exists. Uktaha is said to be so. Sharirinaha. Sharirinaha is one who has taken the sharir, which is the embodied soul, the Atman. Right? Sharirinaha, anashinaha and aprameyasya. Anashinaha means nasham vino. Anashinaha is that which is not subject to a destruction. And aprameyasya. Prameyam means that which can be perceived. There are 6 pramans that we speak about in Vedanta, right? And of the 6th, the first one in itself is having 5, right? Which is called as Pratyaksha Pramanam, right? All the touch, taste, smell, etc. that we are aware of. That is considered to be the first or the primary source of information for us. What color is this mouse? It has gray shade and a black color, right? So people are able to say that. How is it that it is possible? Because the Praman, which is the eyes, are able to see and get that particular sense of the object. So pramanam is that which enables you to gain knowledge. So pratyaksham is one. Then we have anumanam, which is estimation. Right? That must be like about 6 feet tall. Right? So now you have an estimation of how tall that particular figure could be. You have not seen it, but through this means, through the anumanam, you are able to get it. Right? Then upamanam. So you see how is the bison? Man, it looks a little bigger and has some kind of a big horn, and is something that looks like a bull or like a buffalo that you see in your yard. Now you have an example, and you are able to visualize something closer to that. Right? So that is through an example you can get to know. Right? You don't have to have a personal experience, but through some kind of an example, you can do it. The next is arthapatti. You go outside the house and you see the road is all wet. Oh man, it should have rained. Right? You didn't see the rain. It was not raining then, but by the logical conclusion, you are able to get to it. So that is called as arthapatti. The fifth one is a little technical. Anupalabdhi is the name, which is to say that in this room, there is no lion. No, not having an existence into a desham and kalam, or in terms of a vastu, that in itself, not existing in itself, is considered to be a praman. Right? So that non-existence, that is the anupalabdhi, 5. The last one is called as shabda pramanam, that which we are learning. Typically, we attribute it to Veda, and I'm sure some Christian you go to, they will attribute it to Bible. It has been said in Bible, so that is the truth. Right? Swargaloka, we don't know. Right? People can say it exists or it doesn't exist. But what is the praman for Swargaloka? I will say it is Veda. It is been defined in Veda, so there is a Swargaloka. Right? There is a heaven defined in the Bible, and hence there is a heaven. So you attribute the knowledge to a source which is not falling in this 5, but because there is an authenticated verbal source, and hence it is called as Shabda Pramanam. Right? That which comes through the words. That which can be known through these pramans is called as prameyasya. By saying aprameyasya, Bhagavan is saying that this Atma, the self, the subject, does not have a praman to know. And that is the greatness of Atma. Right? I exist, and this existence is self-revealing. There is no praman that is needed to say I exist. I am wearing these glasses today and hence I exist. That is a not wise line of argument. Right? Even if in case I have removed the glasses, I still exist. That existence is not having its base on any other object. It is self-revealing. And hence, Bhagavan says, aprameyasya. And then he concludes, Tasmad yudhyasva bharata. Tasmat, therefore, yudhyasva. Go and engage in the war. Bharata. O Arjuna, son of Bharata. Now, let us go into some of the analysis part of it here. The first one is the word nityam. Right? So for that nityam, we use two kinds of definition. One is called as kutastha nityam. Right? Kutastham means that which doesn't change. Right? So it is the same, and that is nityam, at all times existing. Assuming this Mount Himalaya, the Mount Everest, is going to exist forever. Let us assume. right? In that case, it is not even changing, it is nityam. And so that can be called as kutastha nityam. Whereas Ganges is pravaga nityam. Ganges continues to exist, but it is changing every moment. The 1 second before the water that you saw is not the same that you are seeing now. There is a continuous flow and there is a permanence established through that. So we identify in Shastra the Kutastha Nityam and Pravaga Nityam. Right. Now, we say that the Srishti, the creation, is Pravaga Nityam. For example, Beaverton continues to exist. Chennai continues to exist. People come and go. The objects, the building, everything comes and goes. But Chennai exists. Right? That existence is called as Pravaga Nityam. And for the Kutastha Nityam, we can say it is this subject, the I. That is what is to be realized for us in this shloka. The next one that he says is Aprameyam. And we discussed it in detail to say what is Praman, what is Prameyam, and what is Aprameyam. Then Antavanta ime dehaha. Now here Antavantaha is now pointing it out to the kind of Nityam and Prameya Anubhavam. Right? So because Deha has no Kutastha Nityam, and because the Deha is based on a Prameyam, you can see me, there is a body, right? That aspect of it is always subject to an end. So the Deha, which does not have the Nityam and, is always can be recognized through a Praman, that is always subject to an end. Nityasya, on the other hand, the eternal existence, right, that is anashinaha, right, which is not going to see any destruction, right? So using this particular definition, Bhagavan is establishing that he is speaking about the Kutastha Nityam, Nitya Swarupam of Atma. Right, in the second line, Anashinaha Aprameyasya. Right, in this, the Anashinaha is to support the Kutastha Nityam of Atman. Right, then Avinashi's repetition, if not associated with Kutastha Nityam. This is another technical thing that we talk about, where if a thing is repeated, then we say it is Punarukti dosham. Right? Punar means once again. Ukti means having told. So a person speaking the same thing again and again will be classified under the Punarukti dosham, especially in scriptures. In casual talks, yes, there can be overlaps and there can be repetitions and so on. But when you are writing a scripture, you should not be doing that. And if you do that, then we say that it has this kind of a dosham in it, a deficiency in it, a deficiency of a repetition. So here the anashinaha is associated with the Nitya Swarupam to establish Kutastha Nityam, and hence there is a purpose. So it is not a repetition, whereas it is a qualifier for another property, is the way there are traditions which explain. In our tradition, we say it is okay if it is repeated. Right? Repetition as per the Shadlinga. Right? The Upakrama Upasamhara Nyayam Abhyasam. That abhyasam is repetition. So we say that such repetition is not wrong. It is not, it should not be considered as a dosham. Right? So here we say that that is the line of that is a line of thinking from our tradition. Right? Here, we quote the Abhyasam as a Swarupam, as one of the lingas, Shad lingas. The others are Apurvata, which means it should not have been said earlier. Phalam means that which has got some benefits out of it. So these 6 are considered to be the Shad lingas. These Shadlingas are used to say that, hey, repetition is absolutely fine. So as I said, this note is something to uh, counter people who can say it is Punarukti Dosham, or say that, hey, it is not Punarukti Dosham because of this. We say that even if in case you take it separately as Anashinaha, Aprameyasya, right, then also it is not a wrong thing. It is not a dosham. Okay. Uktaha is said to be so. Here we quote Upanishad. The next 2 shlokas will be a direct quote from the Upanishad. With a small minor modification, but it will be, we will see it when we get to the next shloka, right? They are kind of direct references to Upanishad. And so we say that Uktaha refers to this concept is conveyed in the Veda, in the Upanishad Bhagam of the Veda. Sharirinaha. Sharirinaha refers to the Atma, about that which holds the body. Shariram and Shariri. Sharir is a body. The suffix of in refers to one who possesses or one who owns. Thus, one who owns the body is the Sharirinaha. Now, in grammar, it is called as genitive singular. It is the 6th case, which is possessive. Right? In grammar, we call it as vibhakti. Right? So it will come as shashti vibhakti. Right? So when you go into the specifics of Ramam for language, we know sahatau tetam tetani tenatabhyam. Right? So there are ways in which we can transform a word to represent a specific case. Sharirinaha falls under the 6th vibhakti to make it as one who owns the body. Anashinaha, that which cannot be destroyed. Now, taken with Nityasya to identify the property of Atma as Kuthastha Nityam and not Pravaga Nityam. Right? So this is the way that we will analyze the shloka. Now, we have gone through this to a great extent, aprameyasya, right? So once again, the additional thing which I have not mentioned earlier is in the terms of prama represents knowledge. Right? That which is taken as a knowledge about something. That is what is prama. Now we have pramatha. Pramatha is the one who acquires the knowledge, one who gains the knowledge. How does he gain the knowledge? Through a praman, through a means. And what does he gain? Prameyam, the object about which the knowledge was gained. Right? For example, if I see a pen in front of me, the object about which I gain the knowledge is pen, the prameyam. And I gained the knowledge through the means of a praman called as eyes, because I'm seeing it. And hence the praman becomes, or pramanam becomes the eyes. And who has gained the knowledge? I have gained the knowledge. So I become the pramata. For example, now there can be some questions that may be asked. Hey, I'm seeing something and I'm assuming it is X, but it turns out to be Y. We have come across some situation. On the same lines, to tell you what is a dosham, right? This is just to explain it a little further, wherein, say, I'm seeing a pen in front of me. I open, I think this is a beautiful pen, and I'm just about to write it. But when I press, what comes out is the lead, and it is actually a pencil. So I had a knowledge called as, this is what this object is. This is a pen. But then I realize that it is not a pen, but a pencil. So what are all the possibilities? The Shastra says that there can be a dosham in all the three, right? There can be a prameya dosham, there can be a pramana dosham, there can be a pramatra dosham. Means I may have, that I am, what do you say, having this misconception that this is X. Right. Now that is a dosham in me, or I might not have known what is a cell, and I'm looking through the microscope. For me, it is just something, right? There is more bright lights with lots of lines. That's all. It doesn't give me any further information. I'm not able to gain the knowledge, right? Because I don't have the foundation required for the object that I'm seeing to gain the knowledge. So that is called as the dosham in the pramata. The second could be my eyes. My eyes are weak, right? I have gone old. I have to wear my glasses, and I'm seeing it without the glasses, and I'm finding it difficult, and I make a mistake. That is the dosham in the eyes. Sometimes the dosham can be in the object itself, right? Where the object, say for example, you are seeing a red color stone, but when you go there and pick it up, you understand it is a spatikam and there is a red flower behind it, which is what it is reflecting. So the dosham is not in the eyes. The dosham is not in me, the pramata. The dosham is in the object. Right? Dosha means it's a deficiency with respect to something. Right? So here, with respect to revealing its true nature, the dosham was found in the spatikam. Right? It doesn't mean that spatika stone is bad. It just means that that is revealing itself as some red stone instead of revealing itself as spatikam. So that becomes the dosham on the prameyam. So we need to understand that when we are learning about it, when or learning about anything, if we have a clarity in terms of whether I'm having the deficiency and help remove it, if my eyes or my, what do you say, praman has a deficiency and I try to remove it, or if there is a dosham in the object that I'm seeing and try to remove it, then the revelation of truth is possible. We will do an abhyasam on this concept, right? So we will do a little more on this concept as we go through. So let us stop it here, and we will take a look at further and deeper concepts when we are talking about it. So as he said, every subject is a PhD level subject when you start diving deep into it. Here, what we are doing is trying to dive deep into it so that there is no scope for doubt, at least at a superficial level, at least at a stage where we are having undoubted clarity on what Bhagavan is speaking. And that is why for everything we are trying to do this deep dive. Now, the purpose of bringing it here is this aligns with the shloka. This enables the listener to examine what one has understood. And this prompts one to realize that what has been understood is an object, but that is the limitation of teaching. So even these are values when we look at these kind of shlokas that we try to speak and exercise ourselves. Examine and develop the ability to look at the object which has been gained as a knowledge. Negate it as the Atma. That is the first thing. If you are able to see your subject and identify the I in you, the moment you identified it, it has become an object. The Atman cannot be objectified. That is a very important value that we need to realize. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to identify the Atman, negate it as an object, and be that subject that you have identified the Atman to be. So it is an exercise where as soon as it comes to an awareness stage, it becomes an object. But so long as it is in a realized state, it remains the subject. Moving on. Tasmat yudhyasva bharata. Therefore, go and engage in the war. We interpret it as swadharmam kuru. Means do that which is your duty. Why all of a sudden this, and how does it relate? As in Tasmat Yudhyasva Bharata, right? He has been talking about Atman and suddenly he says Tasmat Yudhyasva Bharata, right? The whole concept is by doing your Swadharma, you will attain the purification. You will gain the qualification to learn the Atma Gyan. What is taught here by Bhagavan will remove the Abhiman from Anatma. So remember, this exercise of knowing Atma is not to know Atma, because as soon as you know Atma, you have objectified it. It is to remove your Abhiman from the Anatma. When that Abhiman is gone, when that me, I, mine, kind of an associative capability thinking is removed, Atma will become self-revealing to you. And that is what is defined as moksha. I wouldn't say what I have written here is correct. That leads to moksha. It doesn't lead to moksha. That is moksha. When it reveals itself to you and you become one with that, that is moksha. This line clarifies that what you are learning here is only about Anatma. Atma cannot be defined by anyone, including the Vedas as well as Bhagavan. It is only a pointer for it to get self-revealed. This is an important step towards that is to distinguish, an important step that one needs to take towards that is to distinguish between Atma and Anatma. Moving on to what Acharya has said. Those who have an end, as in those whose existence is destroyed, are antavantaha. Right? So that which can get destroyed is antavantaha. That is the way Acharya starts. Now he gives an example similar to how water that one experiences in a mirage is destroyed through the knowledge of it being a mirage. As soon as you get the realization of the truth, the experience of the falsehood experienced in the untruth is destroyed. So what is need to, the example is very good here, because it is not that you will not see the mirage in the desert. It is just that you will have fun about seeing the mirage, not seeking the water for quenching your thirst. Right? So that is the realization that it will happen. Right? Hence, the intelligent one have said that body is that which get destroyed, while the Atma remains avinashi, indestructible, aprameya, that which cannot be seen as an object by any of the sense organs. Nitya, it's eternal. Now, Acharya has kind of explained this, and he has given one example wherein he says that, like a mirage, what is the context here is exactly that. As soon as you realize this Atman is this, and you see that I am that Atman, that moment itself, you have objectified it. You must overcome that objectification and be grounded to the truth that you got revealed. That is the meaning that Acharya brings here. Aprameyasya na prameyasya pratyakshadi pramanaihi aparichedasya ityartah. It's again a nice concept that Acharya brings here. Basically, he says the use of the term Nitya and Anashinaha is not Punarukti dosha. Eternal as a concept is interpreted by the word in two ways, which is Kutastam and Pravagam. But Acharya establishes this using Nash or destruction. Okay, so we were speaking about that which comes in the tradition, Kutasya Nityam and Pravaga Nityam, etc. But Acharya has taken that which is subject to destruction. So what he says is, an object when is burnt becomes an ash, and we call it as the body is destroyed, even though the existence only changed the form. That is, from a body to an ash. In a different interpretation, when the state of a body changes because of disease, etc., the body is referred to as having been destroyed. Right? So we know that we say it, right? When, what do you say, I got my like autoimmune disease, like I'm saying that, oh man, my body is fully gone. It's gone down. It's destroyed. Right, my base is kind of destroyed. That is the way that we generally see. But the body has not been destroyed, yet a property of the body has been reduced in its capability or eliminated from its capability, and we say the body is destroyed. So what he is saying is the term destruction need not be an absolute transformation. It can be any transformation that it goes through. And what we know is the body goes through a transformation every moment. And that is the main point that he is trying to say. We may be blinded to think that a change can happen only when I can realize it. But what Acharya is pointing it out is the term destruction. When we talk about an object, the term destruction means a change that happens from its previous state to a new state, even though it may appear to be the same. Basically, a complete change of form as well as change of functional ability or presentation is also referred to as destroyed. And then he says, with respect to Atma, both of these kinds of destruction is not applicable. That is the meaning of using both the terms Nityasya and Anashinaha. And he says, if it is not established in this manner, there is also a possibility that one might understand Atma to have eternity, similar to large bodies such as Earth, etc. The Earth and all, we know that it has been there for ages. Right? So we can say that in our Anubhavam, this Earth is Nitya. And what Acharya is pointing out is to say that Nityatvam must not be attributed to Atma. The eternity is not similar to that of a place. When one understands the properties of Nitya and Anashinaha, and might be spoken of in the same manner. So what he is trying to say is, it is not a repetition because of this value. As said in the shloka, aprameyasya, through a praman such as pratyakshanam, pumanam, anumanam, arthapatti, anupalabdhi, and shabdam, through means of words, especially the prasthanatrayam in tradition, by calling Atman as Aprameyaha, Bhagavan establishes that Atman cannot be identified. This is because the concept of Atman cannot be divided into sections. So, an object is that which you can define it in terms of certain boundaries. That is what is dividing into section represents here. And that is not applicable to Atman. It is an undivided, wholesome one, and hence this is the way that Bhagavan has established the term Aprameyaha, Anashinaha, and Nityaha. All these three has been addressed in this part by Acharya. Now, Purvapaksham is asking a question. Nanu Agamena Atma Parichedyet Pratyakshadhina cha Purvam. Now, what he says is, Agama Shastras are the collection, we say it's Agama Shastra, it's just collection of Vedic scriptures. They also speak about Atma. Given that sectionalizing the concept of the soul has been done so much earlier through Agama Shastra, how can one say that Atma cannot be broken up to understand using the means of acquiring knowledge? Very wonderful question. In our colloquial term, okay, if you think that Atma cannot be taught, what have I come here to learn? Right. So that is the kind of a bare question that he is asking. So Acharya says a very nice and a nuanced answer. What he says is true that it cannot be explained. Atma is something that is self-revealing. Atma is realized on its own accord. The example that I say, for me to say I exist. Only after the soul is established, the being is able to know through the means of knowledge and progresses in the logical path, which sectionalizes and acquires the logical knowledge of objects. So what he's saying is, the subject is first established, and only after the subject has been established, that subject is able to create logical divisions and objectify to understand. It certainly cannot be that something is objectified and the subject is identified. So, because the subject is the one which is creating that object will not be able to identify the subject, or through that object, one cannot identify the subject. Right? Literal translation, not certainly of certain type that's not established yet becomes the I. Right? The literal translation. Right? So he says that which is not established into an object can only be the I. A very beautiful explanation. But as he said, this is totally at a PhD level where we can take this line and start doing a deep dive. We tried our best to see how much so we can go. Even Shastra, when it is, because the question started with the Purva Paksha asking why. Even the Shastra, when it is explaining, immediately following the explanation of understanding through the Praman, decline it as an object and negates it. Right, there is one very neti is a kind of mantra, very famous one. Na iti, na iti, na iti, everything will be negated. Right, so through negation, he is, so they try to say this is what is Atma, and they say immediately no. Remember, don't objectify it. As soon as you objectify it, it is not Atma. Right, so there will be a question in one of the Upanishad, Kena Upanishad. Right, so the question will be, can you explain what it is? And he will say, this is what it is, and then say, if you say that you have understood it, then your understanding requires further analysis. Means you have not understood. And for that, the student who is also very smart, very, very beautifully gives a response. We can talk about it when we go to Kena Upanishad. But the whole point is there are several places where it reveals and immediately negates it. Shastra uses Adhyaropa Apavadam. Adhyaropa Apavadam is a teaching practice in which one accepts the existence of something and removes it to teach. For example, I see a snake and I'm shouting, oh, there is a snake. And then Prabhakar comes in and says that there is a rope. Now I will say, okay, bring the rope, let us drive the snake away. Because we are not aligned. For Prabhakar to become a good guru to me, he has to say the rope, the snake that you are seeing there is actually a rope. So what have I done? I have accepted an object, that is adhyaropam, and then apavadam, and then I remove it. This is the means, this is the mechanism that is used in the Shastra to teach. Superimposing falsehood knowingly and then removing the superimposed concept to reveal the truth is Adhyaropa Apavadam. This Adhyaropam is applied precisely for this reason, to deter one from realizing the concept of soul through a Praman, not as a means for one who doesn't know to get to know. When I don't know that I exist, then I can go and say, hey, you exist, because you can sense yourself, you can feel yourself, or do whatever it is. But because of that, you exist. But what you sensed is not you. You exist, your existence. Now, then I can kind of objectify it to explain. However, I know that I exist, and Atma Gyan is revealing that I to me. So, what I need to do is merely remove the misconceptions that I have about I, so that the I reveals itself to you. And this is the way, this is the mechanism applied in the Upanishads, Vedas, and any other Shastra. तथा च श्रुतिः यत् साक्षात् अपरोक्षात् ब्रह्म य आत्मा सर्वान्तरः इति. Now, this is a quote from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which says this Sakshat Brahman, the one Supreme Lord, is the Atma in each of us for everyone. That is the way that Shruti speaks. Now, this is again a way that Acharya, the tradition, has been understanding. Here, it is not a vidhi. He doesn't say, hey, get up and go fight. It is not a command given to Arjuna. Right? It is anuvada matram. So, since in this manner that Atma is eternal and unchanging is established, hence Bhagavan says, Tasmat yudhyasva. Do not heed to the cessation of war is the meaning. It is not established as law or as a command issued to Arjuna to engage in war. It is because Arjuna was bound by the sorrow and delusion and sat down silently. Bhagavan was only attempting to remove that obstruction. The challenges that Arjuna is facing in his path. Therefore, engage in war becomes only an approval for him to continue his path and not a direction or a command given to Arjuna. That is again something that Acharya says. Shoka mohadi samsara karana nivrityartham Gita Shastram na pravritta karma इति एतस्य अर्थस्य साक्षिभूते ऋचौ अनिनाय भगवन् यत्तु मन्यसे युद्धे भीष्मादयो मया हन्यन्ते अहम् एवं तेषां हन्ता इति एष बुद्धिः मृषा एव ते कथम्. This is the introduction to the next shloka. The Gita Shastra for the world is to address the bondage, shokam or moham, delusion, and samsaram. This is not for that. Not a direction for one to move forward, as in providing a diktat for you to follow. This is the biggest of the beauty of Sanatana Dharma. It doesn't say, it is not a commandment. It is not an order. It is not a discipline. It is not something that says, this is the way it is. Find out. You will realize that there is only one truth. And you will know what is required to be done. And hence, Gita Shastra is not a commandment. It is not a diktat for you to follow. Right? In witness whereof, two verses have been cited by Lord Krishna. Right? So again, Acharya is going to go into the next shloka here and say the next two shlokas are quoted from the Upanishad to establish this, to say that Yudhyasva Bharata is not go and fight Bharata, it is to remove that obstruction that you may be facing in your path, in your life. The clarification that Lord Krishna brings to Arjuna through this is to bring awareness to Arjuna that his mind is only seeing an illusion as he thinks, by me, in the battle front, Bhishma Pitama and others will be killed. I am the one who will be killing them. This thought is merely an illusion. For that matter, anything that one claims as I have done is wrong. And this will be further done in the 18th chapter. Very beautiful explanation, right? There will be 5 elements that will be introduced by Bhagavan to define that these 5 come together for a kriya to be done. And when these 5 are doing the kriya, the ahambhavam saying, I have done it, is so foolish, is the way that Bhagavan will speak. But let us see how Bhagavan does this in the next shloka, which is the shloka number 19, which is a quote from Upanishad. We will take a break here and we will continue this 19th shloka in our next class. Harihi Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.